Hello everyone, this is your favorite Murtad live once again. Salamul Masih to everyone. Peace of Christ be with each and every one of you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As always, we will going to dig deep into some Islamic narratives. Today we are going to show you another narrative, and I think this will be something very new to a lot of people. So as far as I can see from the research our brother did, I'm going to introduce you to a brother in just a little moment. This will not be done in one stream. This cannot be done in one stream. So we will going to have maybe 5 or 6 parts. That's why you can see this as part one. This will be part one. Otherwise, if we have to cover the whole topic, I think it's going to take us maybe 12 to 16 hours, which is not going to happen in one stream. So I'm going to welcome each and every one of you. Please continue, sir. Welcome. Visible, Spiritual Jim, Ben Yusuf, Sach Kasat, and Sanatani Hindu, the Unknower. Proud Kafir came in with a super chat already. Mind Rules, XYZ, Strawberry Cherry, Reasoned Answers Apologetics videos. Welcome, brother. Reasoned Answer Apologetics video is also a very dear brother of ours. I will going to go live with this brother very soon. Very soon. Sergeant Grinch, Jesse Williams, Dudzur, and Nisar Walker. Welcome, Honeybee. Welcome. Proud Kafir said with a 499 super chat. Adam, you have done an amazing work. Just kill this cult and put deep inside the coffin. We Indians sick of this fraud. Adam, you're most wanted in India. Thank you so very much. Most wanted is a bad word. I am most wanted in Pakistan, not in India. In India, I might be most liked, but not most wanted. Sirat al Mustaqim, welcome, brother. God bless you. Salam al Masih. Salam al Masih. Reason answered. Very soon, we are going to go live with you. Very, very soon. You are have done a great videos in your live stream. So, without any further ado, I welcome our brother Lloyd. Welcome, brother. How are you?
Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome. Thanks, Adam, for having me on, and welcome to all the guests. Thank you for being here to see what we have to talk about today.
Amen, brother. Amen. And without any further ado, guys, whoever are watching us right now, please do not forget to share the stream. This is just the part one. Today, I think, Lloyd, will we able to scratch the surface tip of the iceberg, or I don't think we can even do that today.
I've been doing the same sessions with Reasoned Answers, and it will take at least 4 to 5 episodes to discuss everything, to go through all the details. It's a lot. It's a whole revision of the Islamic narrative from the early history from BC.
Amen, amen, amen. So we'll be able to just scratch the surface today, seems like it. So this will be, maybe we'll hit a hard stop somewhere in the middle, maybe hour and a half into our discussion, and then we will request any Muslim who would want to give us some response. But at the same time, today we are going to show you a different narrative. There is an Islamic narrative on which everyone works, and then there is a narrative which you can see in the Islamic scriptures, but it's hidden. It's hidden. So you gotta have to work deep inside to the Islamic scripture to figure out what this narrative is. And if we look at this narrative with an open eye, you will realize that Islam is nothing more than a cult started somewhere else, taken those things into the Saudi Arabia or the Arabian Peninsula and made it look like a supposed Abrahamic religion. And Islam has nothing to do with Abraham. That's what we are going to see today. So, without any further ado, Let's start. And before we start, Siratul Mustaqim, which means the straight way, which our Lord Jesus Christ showed us, gave us super chat and said, Salamul Masih, brother Adam and apologetics team. Thank you so very much, Siratul Mustaqim, for your super chat and your nice words, nice and kind words. Brother Lloyd, the stage is yours, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Let me. Okay, I will share my screen and then we'll begin.
While you share your screen, we have Waqas Khan. Waqas Khan, I know you and I had many discussions in my Urdu channel, and this is a video which you must watch, listen, comprehend, understand, and then maybe you can talk about it. It is a narrative which you have not seen before, but because you know Arabic and you have studied Quran in Arabic and you can study Hadith in Arabic just a little bit. I know you don't know Arabic much, but maybe you might be able to comprehend and finally get out of this cult. Brother Lloyd, I'm showing your screen now.
Excellent. Thank you. So thank you all for being here. And this is going to be a re-examination of early Islamic history. We're going to dive into proto-Islam, the root sources of Islam. And you notice this slide is entitled Islamic Monotheism. It's long been suspected that Islam is derived from pagan moon worship, and I want to go deep into this subject and provide evidence that has not been presented up to now. I'm going to show you a great deal that I think finally proves that this is the case. So, and I'd like the word monotheism to become a household name, as Thaddeus once said to me. That's Reason Dances. So, we're going to be touching on Babylon. We're going to be talking about Yemen, Ethiopia, Abraham, and also Al Makkah. So, and I call it Al Makkah here for a very good reason. So, yeah, and I want you to notice these symbols here. These are very old symbols going back thousands of years, where you've got here the crescent moon, and this would be the star Venus. It is not always the sun. So, this symbolism goes way, way back.
So, Brother Lloyd, just like one of our Muslim scholar actually says, when you do deep dive, you have issues in the narrative, holes in the narrative. So, are you going to
Correct.
go deep? Are you going to do deep dive today?
We're going to drive a truck through that narrative today.
All right, Mike is yours.
All right. So, briefly, just to summarize where we are going with this, I might jump forward occasionally just to let you know what I'm planning or what I intend for you to learn with this. But let's give you a brief overview. We will be examining archaeology, history, language, and also the Islamic sources. When I say language, we need to know that Arabic is a fairly young language and it is derived from older languages that came before it. Right? So this is actually something that is very important. We'll also look at the Islamic sources. And we're going to learn that Christianity was a very early arrival in Arabia, much earlier than people anticipated. And this is important eventually. Proto-Islam can be traced to Yemeni and Ethiopian paganism. Proto-Islam is based on pagan moon god worship. And what few people know is that the Arabian pagan gods, the pantheon of Arabian pagan gods, are copies of the Babylonian, Sumerian, and Canaanite gods. The whole world at that time shared the same gods. And so Arabia had the very same gods as Babylon and Canaan, and these were the enemies of God in the Bible. So we all know there's no early evidence of Mecca in Arabia, but there is evidence for many Meccas in Yemen. The main Arabian pagan god was called Makkah. And in the Yemeni dialect, his name is with a Q, Al Makkah. But in the Arabic, it becomes a hard K for Makkah. And I want to point out that this might
So,
be the source of the name. Yes?
so basically, you are saying Q is from Kaf. So Makkah versus Makkah. That's
Yes.
the basic difference. Makkah versus Makkah. And then at the same time, how would you identify proto-Islam? How would you define proto-Islam?
We're going to be digging into that, but you're going to see the early sources, the attributes, the qualities of Allah, the name of Allah. You're going to see Muhammad was also so. What few people are aware of, I've gone through the Sirah with you, where they claim that Muhammad was a Muslim from before birth. Muhammad was a Muslim thousands of years before he was born. He was up in paradise with Allah before the earth was even made. However, within the Islamic sources, Muhammad worships the pagan gods. It is written in the Islamic sources Muhammad and Khadija were pagans. In fact, Muhammad had two children. His boys from Khadija were named after the pagan gods. They were named Al Manaf and Al Abdul Uzza. Al Uzza, as you know, is Manaf Alat Al Uzza.
Yes.
His grandfather was called Abdul Uzza, the slave of Al Uzza. His son was called slave of Al Uzza. Al Manaf was a pagan god. So we're going to be getting into all of this. So the main Arabian pagan god was called Al Makkah, right? As I said, the Yemeni Q becomes a hard K in Arabian Arabic, and thus you have Makkah. And this might be the root of the name of Makkah. And then, of course, I also believe that we're going to solve the mystery of Makoraba. Once and for all, we're going to solve the mystery of what is this Makoraba that Muslims claim is the earliest reference to Islam. We're going to show that they're wrong. It's completely false. And we're going to solve this mystery of Makoraba. We're going to go deeper than anyone has gone before on this issue. So, any
Wow.
comments? Yep.
So we're gonna understand Makuraba as well today. That is amazing. So understandably, we know from the Babylonian history written in the Bible, we already know where these gods are. So for Christians, it will be easy to comprehend when we are going to
Mm-hmm.
talk about those Babylonian and Yemeni people and their gods. So,
Same
brother,
gods as bad one. Yeah.
amen. And by the way, just for the Muslims who are in the live chat listening, you have no idea what the Bible states about these gods because your Quran does not mentions them, and you have no idea how these people were living because you deny the Bible. Unfortunately for you, you are in a cult, and that's what we are going to show you today. Learn, understand, comprehend, and then come to us, try to refute. Brother.
Yeah. So, as I said, this is part of a series. We're going to start with an overall history. We're going to go into Ethiopia. We're going to go to Yemen. Then we'll start to focus towards Yemen, and much later we will come back to Ethiopia. But we will touch on both as we go, because Ethiopia and Yemen. So there's been this focus on this northern thesis, talking about what's happening in Turkey, in northern Iraq, and so on. However, there is a lot more going on than people realize in Yemen and in Africa, especially Ethiopia. So we're going to be talking about that. So let's talk about Yeha. Now, Yeha is interesting. The term Ya, we'll get into that in the future, but the name Ya is actually very, very important. So this is a place called Yeha, and it is Sabah. It's a Sabah, the Sabaean kingdom site in Ethiopia. So it's a site of the kingdom of Sabah in Ethiopia. So Yeha is a Bronze Age site near Aksum in Ethiopia. It is the largest archaeological site in the Horn of Africa, showing African contact with South Arabia. And Sabah is the historical Sabaean kingdom of Sheba, the kingdom of the Queen of Sheba. Right, so this is important because the Queen of Sheba is actually very important within the Islamic narrative, as well as Solomon. Now, Yeha is the precursor, is what came before the Ethiopic Aksumite Empire. Many people have never heard of this Aksumite Empire in Ethiopia. They were very important, very influential, and almost totally forgotten. Right. Ah, XYZ says something very, very nice. Brother Lloyd's work completes the trinity of investigation into Islam, textually, historically, and now hidden knowledge. So thank you very much. That's very kind.
Thank you,
Right.
XYZ.
So now, this site in Yeha, called Yeha, was established in the 8th century before Christ. So we're looking at 800 to 1000 years before Christ was born. It includes a temple. It has an elite residence or a palace called the Great Baal Gebri, and rock-cut shaft tombs. Now, this Baal might be a reference to Baal. Okay, just bear that in mind. And the Sabaeans, we need to know, were a Semitic people from an Arabian kingdom in western Yemen. So these people originally came from Yemen and traveled into Africa. The empire flourished from the 8th century BC to about 275 AD when they collapsed. Now, what is interesting is that this temple in Ethiopia is known as the El Makkah Temple. Now, what is important to know is that Al Makkah, whose name is spelled differently, has other names, similar names, and different names as well. El is the original god that was worshipped by the Canaanites, by the Babylonians, and the Jews were told that they were to destroy all temples and kill the prophets of and the priestesses and destroy the idols of the god El, because Yahweh tells the Jews, I am El, I am the only true God. So you have El Makkah temple, right, which existed long before we have Mecca in Arabia. And then finally, we need to be aware that the Yemeni Q sound becomes an Arabic K. So this is El Makkah. So the god Makkah, the prime god Makkah, the temple to the supreme deity called Makkah. Your thoughts, Adam?
Yeah, let me just add a couple of words over here. Quran actually clearly says that the Quran is revealed in the Lughatul Arabiya, in the tongue of Arabian people. So when we talk about the tongue of Arabian people, it is this language which is spoken at that particular area. So when we talk about the language spoken in that particular area, we already know from the evidence of the history and the carbon dating of early Quranic manuscripts that that language was the Arabic language was in an evolution at that particular time. It did not
Yep.
had any diacritical marking. It didn't have the dots. It didn't have the vowels. It didn't have any diacritical marking as well. So when we look at these kind of things, you have to go back 1400 years and then think about these things. The people who migrated from certain area joined together in a Arabian Peninsula, different languages that they were coming in with, and they created a supposed language which is a mixture of so many languages. And this is why when my brother says Makka, which becomes a Makkah, it is fairly possible. Okay, so you need to comprehend this by looking at what we have already discussed and told in the past in many videos, and know the history of the evolution of the language of the Arabic language of that place. And this is a very good sheet that you are showing now. Please zoom
We're
in a
going to
little
be
so that
talking.
people would know
Yeah,
what
we're
you're
going to
showing.
be talking a little bit about that as we go through. We will be talking about the evolution of the language, the influence of the language. This is very important. So let me bring up this table. This is taken from the 1938 edition of Arthur Jeffrey's Foreign Words in the Quran. That's this book here, Foreign Words in the Quran by Arthur Jeffrey. Right now, this is available. If you go to my community tab, you'll find this. You can get direct access to the spreadsheet. Let me just zoom out so you can see here. The Quran has a total of approximately 77,430 words. Unique words in the Quran, these are words that are not repeated, are only 14,716. Right? However, we need to understand that now this table is, as I said, created in 1938. It is a little bit out of date. There are new words that are known. And also, some of these words that are claimed to be Aramaic or Syriac are actually from Ethiopia. We need to bear this in mind. This is all going to be very important. But notice here, at the time, right, you've got Syriac is apparently the number one set of words in the Quran, 382 words. Aramaic, now this total, these percentages you see here, right, these percentages are based on the 77,000 words. Okay, and I believe this is number of unique words. Now that's of the 14,000 unique words and of the total number of words. So of the list, 18.5% of all the words in the Quran are Syriac of this list of the foreign words. Aramaic is 300, then comes Hebrew, then comes Greek at 205 words, and then Ethiopic at 196. Now with Ethiopic, we also have to add Amharic, which takes us to 200. And then there are additional words which, while they say it's Aramaic and Syriac, as far as I can determine, some of these words derive originally from Ethiopia. right? So notice that this is a very long list of apparently 55 different languages that are found within the Quran. Your thoughts on that, Adam?
Now, brother, that actually shows what I'm just saying,
Hmm.
that the people collected themselves together. Probably these people were the people who were thrown out of their tribes. Okay, nobody wanted them because they had to go in a middle of nowhere in desert and start living there. And everyone speaks their own language. Some are coming from north, some are coming from south, some are coming from east. And all of these people has languages which are very close, semantic languages, right? And they
Semitic. Yeah.
combine, made a new kind of a language, a new kind of a culture. And then 400 to 500 years later, from those people, a guy stood up and said, I am Muhammad, I am the Prophet of Allah. You see, out of nowhere, in nowhere, a guy stands up and say, I am the Prophet of God, accept my verdict. In a language which is not even evolved enough to be written down. In a language that is not even evolved enough to be written down, brother. That's
That is
how
true. We'll be
stupid
discussing some of
it
that.
is.
Hmm.
Yes. And this
Notice
language, hmm,
Honey
sorry.
Bee says that explains why there are lots of words in my language, Amharic, the same as Arabic. What is interesting is that you should know that of all the Semitic languages, Honey Bee, Ethiopic is the closest to Arabic. Of all these Semitic languages, Ethiopic is the closest to Arabic. And in fact, it's one of the root sources of Arabic.
Exactly. And the same is the case. If you look at the evolution of the languages, Aramaic is comes on the top of all of these languages in this peninsula. So
Yeah.
they are kind of one way or other being derived from Aramaic one way or another. And then some
Well,
languages, sorry.
no, guess what is the oldest language? Let me just go here. Guess what is the oldest language in the world? So, Ethiopian is the oldest language in the world and has departed the least in its forms from the original Proto Semitic, right? So, Arabic is derived from Proto Semitic. And in fact, if we go, I will go into this document in the future, but understand that Ethiopian, this is the Ge'ez, and the follow on Amharic. This is a huge influence on modern Arabic. And in fact, the word, for instance, the word Tawhid,
Tawheed.
guess, Tawhid, yeah, guess where that comes from, Adam?
Ethiopia?
Ethiopia. And think of this though. Do you know that the Ethiopian church is called the Ethiopian Orthodox Tawahedo Church? It's taken from a Christian church, the term Tawhid.
Oh man.
Yes.
Brother,
So,
just a
yeah.
couple of weeks ago, rather a month ago, I went live to show Ginza Rabba, which is a
Hmm.
book of Sabi'in. And you know what's the language this book was originally written in?
Ethiopic?
It is the Mendiak language, which
Oh,
is
okay.
what? You know which is what? Which is the southeastern Aramaic language derived from southeastern Aramaic language. And what do you mean by southeast, brother? Somewhere near Yemen.
Yes, yeah, correct. And in fact, yeah. So Jay just had an episode where the Quranic Arabic is from Yemen. They've just shown that the Quranic Arabic. But let's before we get into that too far, let me just stick with this, and we'll. So okay, so now we've introduced a few things that you may not be familiar with, but so do understand. Now this is Aksum here in Ethiopia, right? So this is Aksum, which was the capital of the Aksumite Empire at that time, right? This is also part of Eritrea. So they had influence over this region. We'll discuss more. And this is Yeha, right? And then of course, what we have this major temple to Al Makkah here in Yeha, right? And then of course we also have an Al Makkah temple, just like it, across in Yemen. And in fact, if we keep looking, we will find several of these temples to Al Makkah in both Ethiopia and in southwestern Yemen. All right. So this is Najran. You can see this was a Christian center. This was a center of pilgrimage in Arabia. And this is very, very close to this area where the temples and the religion of Al Makkah was strongest. So I'll continue. So the Sabaeans, who were the Sabaeans? Let's have a Muslim perspective. So we have the Muslim writer Muhammad Shukri al-Alusi, and he compared their religious practices to Islam in his Bulugh al-Arab fi Ahwal al-Arab. And he said the Arabs during the pre-Islamic period used to practice things that were included in the Islamic Sharia. They, for instance, did not marry both a mother and her daughter. They considered marrying two sisters simultaneously to be the most heinous crime. They censured anyone who married his stepmother. They made the major Hajj and the minor Umrah pilgrimage to the Kaaba. Notice he's talking about pre-Islamic Arabs, right? They performed the circumambulation around the Kaaba Tawaf, ran 7 times between Mount Safa and Marwa, threw rocks, and washed themselves after sexual intercourse. They also gargled, sniffed water up into their noses, clipped their fingernails, removed all pubic hair, and performed ritual circumcision. Likewise, they cut off the right hand of a thief and stoned adulterers. Now, I'm not going to quote the entire book for you, but notice these are pagan Arab practices that are 100% identical to modern Islamic practices. Adam.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying earlier, the Sabi'in Quran. There is a video. So if you want to know more about Sabi'ins, my brother is showing you the page about Sabi'ins and their book. If you want to know, go to the live stream that I did called "The Origin of Quran." So I'm gonna share the
Mhm.
link. You guys need to watch this. I have shown you Tawheed, the word Tawheed in it. The book, the Sabi'in, the book of Sabi'in is in there, and this is all there. So imagine 50% of Muhammad's religion is a Sabi'in religion, which I have shown in this video is a Christian cult. So a cult which was derived, who
You're
are
thinking of the
actually,
Sabians as opposed to these are the Sabaeans. You're thinking of the Sabians. They are slightly they're different.
but they are actually doing the same thing. That's what I'm saying.
True,
Okay,
there's overlap.
if
Yeah,
there is if there is a slight difference, yet they are both doing the same thing. You maybe there's a confusion in the language, but still I think everything that you are showing is there. So
yeah.
so
So and
it's what Sabi'in believe, brother. Just let me just divert a little. They were supposedly the follower of John the Baptist. Okay, the follower of John the Baptist who did not accepted the Christ, and they created a subsect of Sabi'ins, and they were doing all these ritualistic things. So imagine how the twisted plot is. They are still waiting for Christ. They
no,
have a cross.
they actually hate Jesus Christ. They call him a fake god, and they follow their god called Anosh, who is basically Enoch from. This is Enoch from the secondary Gospels, the Deuterocanonical Book of Enoch.
See?
Right?
All right,
And
brother.
guess which church, oddly enough, still views the Book of Enoch as part of the main canon, and this would happen to be the Ethiopian Orthodox Tawhedo Church. All of these things we will get into.
Wow.
Yeah. So all of these things are important, and all of these things we need to dive into. So this is all relevant. We'll be discussing. So notice the Sabaeans have 5 prayers, similar to the 5 prayers of the Muslims. 5 prayers, 5 prayers. No coincidence at all. Others say there are 7 prayers, 5 of which are comparable to the prayers of the Muslims. Now that's interesting. 5 prayers and 7 prayers. We'll come back to that.
And
And
then
with
seven are
regard to
the
time,
charged. And so in Islam
yeah,
as well, you have charged and tahajjud. So these two are not absolute compulsory, but you should recite them, and you go to seven, brother.
right. So we'll talk more about it. We'll come to all of these. There's little coincidences that start to add up constantly. And with regard to time, there is morning, noon, afternoon, evening, and night. The 6th is at midnight, and the 7th is at forenoon. It is their practice to pray over the dead without kneeling down or even bending the knee. They also fast for one lunar month of 30 days. They start their fast at the last watch of the night and continue till the setting of the sun. Some of their sects fast during the month of Ramadan. They face the Kaaba when they pray, they venerate Mecca, and they believe in making pilgrimage to the Kaaba. They consider dead bodies, blood, and the flesh of pigs as unlawful. They also forbid marriage for the same reasons as do Muslims. Effectively speaking, these pagan Arabs are Muslims.
Okay. Hold on. So they have 7 prayers, and the last 2 prayers that you mentioned are actually charged and tahajjud
Yes.
after the midnight and before the forenoon. That's the every single prayer of Islam, man.
And these are pagans. These are pagan moon god worshippers.
And
Understand? These are,
they do the Ramadan, so they have the Ramadan as well there.
so yeah, understand. And this is coming from an Islamic scholar. Right. So yeah, I'll leave you guys at that. But understand this: these pagans, all of these practices were taken over into Islam directly, which and they had a pagan origin. They originally came from paganism. So in Bulugh al Arab fi Ahwal al Arab, we read the 4 sacred months, Rajab, Dhul Qada, Dhul Hijjah, and Muharram, have been considered sacred during the pre-Islamic period, the Jahiliyyah. Raids, taking revenge, war fighting, and disputes were forbidden. If a man met his enemy who killed his father or brother during these months, he would not quarrel. During the sacred months, they were under restriction not to fight or make raids and had to remove their spearheads as a sign that they would avoid fighting. So Islam borrowed all of these months from the pre-Islamic Arabs and introduced nothing new into the world. And this is from an Islamic scholar. Abdullah Abd al-Fadi is the Quran Infallible, page 127. Pre-Islamic Islam borrowed these things from the pre-Islamic Arabs and introduced nothing new into the world.
Wow, that explains a lot of stuff, brother. So
Right.
even the Quran mentions when the sacred months have passed away, kill them wherever you find them and hide under the bushes so that you could kill them. That's Quran chapter number 9, verse number 5. This is the verse of the sword. This is called the verse of the sword. So, what are these sacred months? Rajab, Dil Hajjah, Muharram, Safar, and Rajab, Dil Hajjah. Man, this is wow. There's a limit of copy paste, man. These guys just
It's fully copy paste. They were doing Windows copy paste before Windows came around. So yeah, so recent answers. I think Sergeant Green means what's the difference between the pagans then and the pagans now, as he's just answered. Yeah. What's the difference with paganism and Islam today? Not much, as far as we can tell. So let me continue. Now I want to introduce Al Makkah. Okay, he's commonly spelled Al Makkah. You'll find slightly different spellings. Usually it's just one word, Al Makkah. However, it is not correct to spell it that way. It's 2 words, El and Makkah. El as in like Elohim, but we will cover that in much depth later. Al Makkah is a proper noun. And you can think of it as the El, as the prime god called Makkah. The meaning of the word Makkah is very unclear so far. It is Semitic, it is Sabaean, and the root is LMQH, Al-Muq, right? This is the writing in the Sabaean language, Al-Makkah, right? And in the Ethiopic, in the Ge'ez, you can see the very strong resemblance between these letters. This just extends a little bit, and you get this little bell shape, this one. Then you have the B just rotated another 90 degrees left. Then you get this symbol replaced by this symbol, and this symbol is that symbol. So the Ethiopic, the Ge'ez, is very similar to the Semitic Sabaean language. So these languages are derived. In other words, the Yemenis invented the script. The Ethiopians took the script and developed it even further. And every sound within the Arabic language is found within the Ge'ez language, or within Ethiopian. Modern Ethiopian even includes all of the sounds that are found in Arabic. Now, Al-Makkah was a moon god who was once worshipped in Yemen, in Saba or Sheba, as remember, Queen of Sheba, and also in Ethiopia in the empire called Aksum. The synonyms, amongst the many, many synonyms for, was Al-Makkah and also Al-Muk, right? Al-Muk, you see here, Al-Muk, right? And the H would give you the Ka, Al-Muk, right? So the Sabaean capital was Marib, which is 120 kilometers east of Sana'a, the current capital of Yemen. These were a seafaring people. They were traders. They traveled on donkeys, on camels, as well as on ships. They built huge irrigation works. In other words, they built dams, and they built castles, and they built large temples. Now, the British Museum, in one exhibition, called them the oldest and most important of the South Arabian kingdoms. Again, it's a civilization you've probably never heard of. And in the Sabaean, this here is the Asabiyun, okay? Asaba'iyun, the Al-Saba'iyun, right? This is what they were called in the Arabic, Al-Saba'iyun, right? They're different to the Sabaeans. In fact, if we go,
Al
right,
Sabiyun.
just
But brother, at the same time, when you are saying that they were travelers and they were doing all of these things, so when J. Smith and everyone were saying, hey, we cannot trace back, how are you traveling? Where are you traveling? What is your travel route? We can't find any in the history, your travel route or anything going from Makkah. You do realize what you are showing. You are showing the
what?
actual travel route. You are showing the actual people who were
Oh,
doing
we'll be
these
talking
travels.
about this. Yep, yeah, yeah, for sure. Yep. So, guys, just so you know, the difference between the Sabaeans, okay, are Arabian pagans, and the Sabians are pseudo biblical Gnostics, right, that hate Jesus. These are pagans. They're two different groups. Now, there might be similarities, and they did meet at certain points, but we'll discuss that in the future. So, Sabians and Sabaeans are two different groups, right? Yes, Adam, we're going to be talking about some trade routes. We will be discussing and showing a little bit of that as we go. So, for instance, so this is Sana'a in Yemen, right? Up here, you'll have Najran. This is the border, the modern border with Saudi Arabia, and this is Marib right here. And these guys came from this region. They controlled this region. And in fact, at one time, they controlled up into Arabia. We'll discuss that as we go. And this is Ethiopia here, right? So these guys controlled this region on this side of Africa, right?
Okay,
So
hold,
this
hold on,
is,
hold
yeah,
on. Before you go further, sorry. You just showed me Sana. Can you please highlight Sana? Here.
yeah, right here.
So the most earliest and the most complete Quran that we can find right now are called Sana
Sana.
manuscript. They were found in Sana. Even though that it has over 80,000 differences with the modern Quran and all that kind of stuff and overwritten and everything, but you do realize what I'm saying? Instead of 4 pages or 6 pages, you have a huge collection that you found in Yemen, in Sana. Oh,
Right.
do you know what you're doing right now?
You tell me. You tell me. I hope it's useful.
Yo, dude, like anybody with a 2 cent of a brain is already there if he has studied his own history. That hey, why can't we have a single Quran coming from Makkah? Why don't we have a single person writing
Well,
a hadith from Makkah or Medina?
well, remember I said that it seems. Look, it seems that the original Mecca is in Yemen, right? Why is the why is the Quranic Arabic Yemeni Arabic, and why is the oldest Quran from Yemen? We're going to be providing evidence for why this should be the case, right? So this is Sana'a in Yemen, and this is Marib, the old capital. This was abandoned after the dam flooded, and it's mentioned actually in the Quran, supposedly as a punishment from Allah.
Unbelievable.
Right. So there were many Al Makkah temples, right? There were many temples to Makkah, right? They were dedicated to a Makkah who was the moon god of Saba, right? Or Sabah. Sana manuscript, different character type than later Qurans as well. That is true because the script evolved, the language evolved, and the script evolved over time. Excellent point there. So there were many Al Makkah temples, okay, who is the moon god of Saba. And this temple measured 14 by 18 by 40 meters. Well, what's important here is 40 by 60 feet by 46 feet, okay? Just this number, 40 by 60 feet, that's important later. Just a small point. Now, being Sabaean, it is similar to the temples of the Sabah kingdom. So back to Ethiopia. Because this temple is Sabaean, it is very similar to the temples of the Sabah kingdom capitals, such as the Al Makkah temple at Sirwa and the Al Makkah temple called Awam in Marib. There were many others of these. Okay, there are three major ones. There's another one called Marib, which is not in the capital, but just named after it. There were some major temples that were where people went on pilgrimages to go worship Al Makkah, right? So after Marib, Sirwa was the most important economic and political center of the kingdom of Saba at the start of the 1st century BC on the Arabian Peninsula. And in front of the building was a platform that had 6 tall pillars called a propylon, right? And Great Balgebri, the palace, once also had 6 pillars. We'll get to all of this. This is important. Now, Yeha has been identified as a pre-Aksumite occupation. So this was occupied before the kingdom of Aksum, the Ethiopian kingdom of Aksum, arose. And based on 19 inscriptions on stone slabs, altars, and seals found in Yeha, written in South Arabian script, right? So there's lots of archaeology that backs up all of this history. So let's have a look. Now, these are the 8 pillars at the Awam al-Makkah temple in Marib. Okay, we have 8 pillars here. So we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think I'd counted that correctly. But notice the gaps between them. You have 7 gaps between them. 8 pillars, 7 gaps, 7 prayers. I think this is what is relevant here, because the prayers are seven ways to Allah, right? So now you've got 8 pillars, gives you 7 prayers. However, look at this one here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this broken one, 6, which will give you 5 prayers. Okay, 6 pillars will give you 5 spaces, which is your 5 prayers. That's how they had the 5 prayers. But also these pillars are very, very important because they are actually mentioned in the Bible, and they also relate to Abraham. Right. Alleluia is John. Who is this fool? So he makes his own references. Where's the reference to it? Blah.
That's another silly guy.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So yeah, no, I made it all up. I even took my own photos. I traveled to Yemen. I took my own photos. I wrote the encyclopedia references. I got my own PhD. Yeah, of course. So anyway, moving on.
this is how stupid these people are somehow.
Yeah,
So
no.
anyhow,
Just
whenever
so you know,
whenever you have an evidence against it, please let us know and come up. By the way, all
for
of these
instance, in
references are given, FYI.
in Islam, the PhD, an Islamic PhD means piled high and deep. When you get a PhD in Islam, it means piled high and deep. We won't talk about what's piled high and deep, but moving on, okay? So this is the temple to Al-Makkah. These are 2 different temples to Al-Makkah, all right? Now, let's have a look here. And this is from the Encyclopedia of Islam, if I remember. It was clearly a royal site under the Mukarrabs. This word is important later. Mukarrabs, the Mukarrab. Probably directly under a king. The Mukarrab was the king of kings. He was the emperor who had many kings under him. It became the center of a tribal group, okay, the Sabah of Sirwa, in the same as what we find in Najran. And the town of Sirwa seems, on onomastic evidence, to have early contained speakers of Arabic. So Arabic was present in Yemen very, very early, right? And they mention here administratively, a Kabir is mentioned who was presumably the representative there of royal power, so representative of the king or the emperor. The town played no role in Islamic times, but its site became a great mythic one for Islamic historians. This is relevant. This site of this temple to the moon god Al-Makkah became important within Arab culture. It became a source of myths and stories and legends within Arabic culture. And Arabic culture, as you know, became Islamic culture, but they were still drawing upon myths taken from this major site. And they
Sorry,
mention here with frequent citations of poetry mentioning it. Yes, Adam?
absolutely. Sorry, brother. Let me answer this guy and let me tell him, hey, Mr. Alleluia, whatever your silly name is, why does Quran forbids the worshipping moon, dude? PhD. Oh, which university? Okay, now let me answer you that before you go into more and more foolish response. We are showing you where the Islam is derived off. Okay, so you have all of these things where the Islam took its roots, but when you are
Hmm.
creating a new cult, you do not take everything as is, but rather What you do is you take 50%, 60%, and in Islam, you actually took 80% from left, right, and center, and then you added 20% on top of it. This is what we are showing you. And in this stream, after another 30 minutes, I will open the stream for you to bring up the evidences against this. So don't worry, I will give you the chance and I will give you the mic. So relax, listen, understand, comprehend. Once you do all that, I will going to give you all the right to speak and refute us. Yes, brother.
All right. So look, once we get to the second and third episodes, this stuff starts to get, this adds up. This is just introduction, right? This starts to get very interesting. As I said, within the Islamic sources, we've just seen that pre-Islamic moon worshippers, moon worshipping pagans, have 100% Islamic practices. So Islam is derived directly from practices that were done by pagan moon worshippers. And now, well, it gets worse, of course. So let's continue. Right. So now let's have a look. So you have Najran. So you've got Marib and Sirwa. Okay. Marib and Sirwa. So actually, Sirwa on the left, Marib on the right. There's more of these temples, right? And here you've got, again, of course, in this side of the world here in Ethiopia, what was then called Abyssinia, you've now got these temples. Right. Now, this is Awam Temple. Now, this is from the Smithsonian Institution. I got this. So they've started at one point, they were excavating. So I've looked at a lot of the archaeology. Wendell Phillips and his team excavated the great walled enclosure of the Mahram Bilqis. Now, the word Mahram, oddly enough, is from Ethiopia. Interestingly, it means temple. Of course, it's incorporated into the Arabic, and it's been, but Bilqis happens to be the queen of Sheba. You would know her as the Queen of Sheba. It is the ancient temple of Awam dedicated to the moon god Al-Makka. Okay, tribal unrest in the area halted their excavation efforts in 1952, and decades later, of course, they started this work again. So they were there up until recently, but they stopped work again in 2015. But up until recently, they were discussing this. So now we know that Al-Makka is a moon god. Okay, now I
So
want
we
to
got
introduce
what?
something. Yeah?
We got what? Can you please repeat it out loud once again?
Sorry, say again.
In the end,
Oh,
you said now we got Makkah as.
so we've got additional evidence, and we will continuously provide the evidence that Al-Makka is a moon god, because one of the major issues, if you look at the information that comes out from Islamic Awareness, for instance, they are desperate to prove that Al-Makka is not a moon god. Okay, because
Mhm.
Al-Makka can be traced directly to Allah. We're going to connect Allah,
The house of
Al-Makka and
Allah.
Allah.
Yeah.
Right. Now, here's the thing, though. We can still trace Al-Makka directly to Allah. Now, even if he was a sun god, what if he's not a moon god, but a sun god? He's still a pagan god, so Allah is still derived from a pagan god.
So
It doesn't
you
help
are
their case then.
so you are saying that this is an other evidence which we found from the archaeological digging.
Plenty of that, yep.
This is the third one that you just showed, and I don't know why you just speak like you want everyone to go to sleep when you speak. Please
Sorry.
emphasize the words which are very important so that people would realize what you just told us all. This is the third evidence which points that the word Makkah, okay, is representing a moon god.
The supreme moon god, the supreme deity.
The L, not the L.
Well,
In
you see, what
Arabic,
we'll
the
find
L.
later is Al-Makka had another name. You might have heard this name. It was called Allah.
We will go there. We'll go there later. But for now, let's just stick to now because I wanna be with you right now. So,
So,
so I know what you mean. But brother, do you understand why these people are so scared of our streams and they are trying to change the topic left, right, and center? Why
of
did
course.
why did Quran says do not worship moon? Okay, that's a later narrative which was evolved. We can see that. We are showing you how and what the Quran did. When Quran and Muhammad took everything from these pagans who were worshipping other deities, and especially in those other deities, the best deity, the topmost deity, the Akbar deity. Akbar means the biggest, okay, not the greatest. which is the normal
Mhm.
translation which the Muslims do. Azim means the greatest. Akbar means the biggest. In Arabic, this is the two different words.
Yeah, it's not the greatest. You're right. It's the biggest. My
It's
rock
the
is
biggest.
bigger than your rock.
Absolutely. So Akbar, the biggest. So the biggest god is the moon god.
Well, look at how big these pillars are. These are really big gods right there. But we shall continue. So yeah. Now, so look, as I said, I'm introducing this. It's going to go a little slower at the beginning, but once we get into this, you're going to start seeing the connections into the pagan Babylon. Once we get into Babylon, it starts to get very interesting. But first, let's lay all the evidence down. So now we need to know that within the Bible, there are references to Abraham's family before Abraham accepted Yahweh, before he met Yahweh, right? He was also he happened to be Sabaean. So
A pagan.
Abraham
A
happened to
pagan.
he was, yeah, but not just any pagan. He was Sabaean. He
Hmm.
was Sabaean, like these guys. He was a Sabaean. He was a moon god worshipper, and he worshipped pillars. Okay, so God speaks to him about that, but we'll get there. So now archaeologists, now we're going to talk about Rajalil columns or stelae, right? This is up here in northern Arabia, this section up here. So archaeologists working in Saudi Arabia continue to puzzle over the meaning of more than 50 groups of oddly arranged standing stones. So now what you've got is you've got these megaliths, these little megalithic sites all over Arabia, right? But especially this one with these little 50 stones, the most famous of which are found at the site of Al Rajajil, near the ancient oasis town of Al Juf, or Rajalil, sorry. These are thought to date to the Chalcolithic period, which is 4,500 to 3,500 BC, which were then created more than 5,500 years ago by an unknown people. Pillars raised more than 5,500 years ago. So many pillars are now fallen, others are tilting heavily. They were erected in Saudi Arabia's Al Juf province during the 4th millennium before Christ. Let's have a look at these megalithic pillars. Okay, here's an example of some of these pillars. So this worship of pillars goes far back in history, 6,000 years. Let's have a look at another site. These pillars going back. All right. So now Al Juf was a significant stopover point on several ancient trade highways. Trade is critical. Trade is actually very important. This is our information, and in fact, how religion spread in those days through trade. They would go to places, learn about new gods, bring all that back, right? So it's a stopover point on several ancient trade highways which connected the Arabian Peninsula, Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Syria. This is the land route. Later on, you will learn these guys were connected to Greece, to Rome, to India, even as far away as China. So one trade route, one of the oldest land routes in recorded history, ran from Yemen and parallel to the Red Sea coast through Medina, Al-Ula, and Madain Saleh. It turned northeast to Al Juf and then north towards Damascus and Turkey. Turkey pops into this as well as very important. By traveling north and northeast to Al Juf, then east, the road avoided the harsh sands of the Great Nafud Desert, right? And the very difficult to pass terrain of the Wadi al Sirhan to the north. Now, these stones, we don't know what they mean, but they are these pillars, the same as the pagan moon god worship pillars, and the same which is mentioned in the Bible as something that God hates. The stones may have indicated the presence of the crossroad and the safer route to take. Again, in the Bible, God hates these pillars, and he tells Abraham, I hate these pillars, you will destroy them. So the standing stones of Al Rajalil represents an enigma that very few people have heard of.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to add a couple of things over here, brothers. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not going to add about the pillar because we're going to talk about them further, but I'm going to talk about this Alaluja guy. He says Luling seeks northern Syriac dudes, not Yemen in south. And I know why this guy is so scared of what we are showing, because everyone was pointing towards north. Everyone was pointing towards Syriac origin of Quran. Everyone was going there. Whereas what you are showing is, and I'm gonna give some people, when in the movie you give a something that has yet to come. What do you call it? A spoiler. Yeah, spoiler.
Mm-hmm.
You are showing that it is not actually Syriac. Basically, there is an influence of the Syriac origin. Yes, there is.
They connect. They
Yeah.
eventually connect. They're both
Yes.
north, but you see, the south has been ignored.
Exactly. So you are actually connecting the dots where the rest of the stuff is coming. Why there is a Yemeni corner? Why Muhammad said that your religion comes from Yemen? So you
Correct.
are actually pointing, you're hitting the right nail, and that is why this Abdul is so scared, and he is, I wanted to say bark, but I will not say that. He is using the most abusive words with YouTube is blocking by itself. And I can see that because I am the admin of this channel. I can see his abusive words. He is scared from his bones, deep
Now we're
inside.
going to, yeah, all of this will make sense. I mean, all of it adds up. You will be seeing, and I've so yeah, we're going to start to see the African influence and the Southern Arabian influence, and then we're going to connect the two. You're going to find that the connections are very unexpected. Right, so let's continue. Now let's look at this propylon, okay? So propylon means before or in front of a gate. That's a propylon. It's a pagan thing, it's an Egyptian thing, and it means pillars in front of a gate, okay? So propylae, monumental gates or entranceways to a temple or religious complex, a symbolic partition. Now, these pillars that we showed you in front of these pagan temples that go back 5,500 years are symbolic pillars. They separate you from the outside secular world into the religious enclave you're moving into. In the Century Dictionary Encyclopedia, in ancient Egyptian architecture, a monumental gateway, usually between two towers, in Chambers' 20th Century Dictionary, a monumental gateway before the entrance of an ancient Egyptian temple. Egypt comes up a lot. We're not going to get into it much, but Egypt comes up a lot. Now, you might be familiar with this building. It's somewhere in Jerusalem, I believe. I'm not sure. But notice you've got the symbolic propylon, the symbolic gateway that is a practice that derived from the pagans in Egypt. Do you see that, Adam?
Yeah. So out of nowhere, they made these pillars and mihrabs, which has there is no wall on the right and the left. They just made it. Why? Did anybody ask
Because,
why? Like
yeah,
why do these Muslims do not ask the question why they just made it in the middle of nowhere and there is no left and right wall and it's just there? Why is it just there? Why don't they think?
yeah, so notice you got the same propylons here, the same pillars, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. You've got these, notice these same pillars, the same structure here of these pillars, and this strange group of pillars here for no reason, the same propylon. So we'll get into that more. Now, back to Axum, okay? So we'll keep this in mind. This is the Masjid al-Haram, right? So we'll bear that in mind. We'll come back to all of this.
Masjid
Axum.
al-Aqsa.
So
No, this is Masjid al-Aqsa, not Haram.
oh, Masjid, sorry, my bad. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't put the name down. Masjid al-Aqsa, yeah. So Aksum was one of the four great powers. Was one of the greatest powers of the world of the time, alongside Rome, Persia, and China. So it was the fourth greatest power in the world. This African kingdom was the fourth greatest power in the world. So these Yemenis invaded Africa. They invaded Ethiopia. They took over that region and they started this empire. But then they fell, and then these Aksumites, these Ethiopians, they became a great power, and they then invaded southern Arabia. They invaded Yemen and southern Arabia, right? So Aksum was one of the four greatest powers after Rome, Persia, and China, which is incredible that we've never heard of them. And also, this was according to Mani, who wrote a lot. He's the founder of Manichaeism. Aksum had influence over Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somalia, Arabia, Egypt, and had extensive trade contacts with Asia, all the way to India, as well as the Mediterranean. We're talking Greece, we're talking Rome, okay? So, and the Aksumites developed Africa's only indigenous written script called Ge'ez. And of course, they used to make these stelae or these pillars. Okay, they made these pillars. They were also a pagan cult. They worshipped the same moon god Al-Makka. Right. So now let's continue. Sabaeans
Uh,
in Africa. Yeah.
just a second before you move on. Many XJW said, leave a like for the YouTube algorithm so more of the indoctrinated wake up. Not just a like. Thank you, Manny. Thank you so very much for your super chat of 499. Not just a like. I would like you to leave a comment, a short comment as well, and then share it. So thank you so very much for your like. And in another 15 minutes, I'm going to open the stream for any Abdul to come up and provide the evidence against it. Brother, carry on.
Okay. So from the Encyclopedia of Islam, so Sabaeans in Africa, around the middle of the first millennium BC, there were Sabaeans in the Horn of Africa, in the land that became Eritrea, as well as Ethiopia. They controlled all of that region. The evidence consists of inscriptions which make it clear that we have to do with genuine Sabaeans holding to the national cult of Al-Makka. They were mixed up with various non-Sabaean communities, so they were actually mixed up with multiple different religions. And it is still much in dispute how one can envisage the actual demographic and political situation. In other words, it was a political and demographic mess. They needed at some point to unify it under one banner. But that's, again, part of the future discussion. And here's something, just some remarks on the origins of the Aksumite stele, these little pillars that we've seen. So we want to investigate the origins of the Aksumite stele in the light of Near Eastern and African megalithism. So you're talking about these might be for funerals. Okay, they date to the 3rd millennium BC. These very same pillars that were found in Africa are found in Arabia, in northern Arabia, as you saw, and also found in the Negev desert, which is obviously towards Israel, right? So now you've got the very same idea of pillar worship, not only in Africa, but all the way through Arabia. And then, of course, you also find them in Jordan, right? And a sanctuary devoted to the ancestor cult dating between the 4th and the 1st millennium was also in southern Jordan. So this concept of these pillars, right, was all over Arabia. So back to the Aksumite Empire. So according to National Geographic, they were a wealthy trading nation in Northeast Africa, achieving prominence by the 1st century, unifying and controlling a large state and access to trade routes linking Rome to the Middle East and India. They were the biggest trading partner with the Byzantine Roman Empire, as well as India. And the Aksumites introduced Christianity to the rest of sub-Saharan Africa. They were responsible. They became Christians. They introduced Christianity to sub-Saharan Africa. Archaeologists have also found evidence for another complex society called Dimit. Okay, Diamat. People are very unclear what Dimit means. However, we'll get into that in the future. We'll come back to Dimit and we'll discuss what the possible meaning of Dimit is. However, this Dimit here very likely means graven idol. Okay, it very likely means graven idol, but we'll get into that. That preceded the rise of Aksum by several centuries, based in Yeha in the Tigray Highlands, which is in Ethiopia. Right, so now you've got this culture. It was stationed at the crossroads of trade routes from East African coast to the African interior. And trading partners included most of the major states in the whole known world: Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, India, even China. So these Africans were trading as far away as China. Their most important trading partner was the Romans. And this is how they became Christianized, because of their trade with Rome. So notice the size of this empire. Now, in fact, it's larger. In fact, it extended further into Arabia. Okay. So at one point, they controlled all of this area here. So these Africans controlled for a very long time. And at one point, they controlled all of southern Arabia, southwestern Arabia. Right. So these are the trade routes that they followed. They went all the way around to China, and they went all the way up here from the Mediterranean into Greece, into Rome, and so on, Italy, and so on. So these guys traveled extensively. Any comments, questions?
Not really, but if possible, can you? By the way, I've shared the link up live to any Abdul who would like to come up and talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
The stream is now open, FYI. Uh, if possible, can you show us the Google Maps where how far is Makkah from the center of the Yemen, and why we are
Sure.
saying that it is the origin, not the exact religion, but the origin. You need to understand, guys,
Correct.
anybody, you need to understand the difference. We are not saying, none of us are saying that Islam is the same pagan religion. No, we are saying it is derived from there, and then certain things were added up to make it look like a different religion. And that is why it has the Syriac origin, as well as majority is Ethiopian and Yemeni, because this was where.
Correct.
And by the way, brother, the elephants, they came from Yemen as well. You
The
know that.
elephants, yeah, they came out of Ethiopia. Apparently, they took them by boat across from Ethiopia. But yeah, that's we'll get into a lot of these things. So tell me something. This guy that's making so much noise, Alleluia is John, not Bible. Well, whatever his name is. Look, as you know, Islam claims that Adam was 90 feet tall, and it also claims that Adam was buried next to the Kaaba, And not only that, but you also have up to 300 prophets were buried next to the Kaaba. Okay, they were buried between the Zamzam and the Maqam Ibrahim and the Kaaba, and which are what, 30 meters apart. So there's like 30 meters between these objects. So you've got 300 prophets and a 90-foot skeleton. Can you please put in the chat the evidence, like, the archaeology or this radar scans of this 90-foot. So remember, it's a 36-meter tall skeleton, okay? Adam's skeleton is 36 meters long, and it's 30 meters from the Maqam Ibrahim to the Kaaba. So he's longer than that distance. He should be very easy to find. Can you please put the evidence for Adam's skeleton and the 300 praying prophets who are buried underground in the
Man,
chat, please?
I'm still alive, brother. How can they find my skeleton? I'm still alive. I'm 90 feet tall. I am Adam. Come on, brother. At the same time,
No,
as
I'm talking about the original Adam. I'm talking about Adam in the Bible, the first Adam, the first man. That
oh,
Muslims claim
that
he was buried in
one,
the
that
Kaaba.
one.
He was buried at the Kaaba.
Okay.
Did you know that? He's 36 meters tall. He's
Yeah,
buried
I
at
know
the
he's a
Kaaba,
90 feet tall. But at the same time, brother, can you please tell me the height of the Kaaba?
but 12 meters, I think.
Thank you so very much. So Adam can't even get in, but apparently Adam went in and prayed. So he built the Kaaba. He went in and prayed, while Kaaba is like what, 15 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet tall, and Adam was what, 90 feet. So maybe his foot cannot be fit in. I don't know why Adam built such a small Kaaba, but at the same time we have a good news, brother, a testimony, a short testimony. Siraj Kamal actually said with a £5 super chat, Adam bhai means brother, I'm an ex-Momin, I'm an ex-Muslim, and I like to read about other religions, and you have given me a lot of knowledge about Christianity. I support your work. Thank you so very much, Siraj Kamal, for this nice short testimony and your support. God bless you, man. And may you continue to seek, and you will find the truth which is in our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. We have Rob Christian as well with us. Rob, welcome,
Welcome.
brother. Adam was 60 for arms dinar tall brother. Fact. And yes, that fact is right now on the screen.
Yeah. So Adam is taller than the distance between the Kaaba and Zamzam, the Kaaba and the Maqam Ibrahim. So if you can please just drop us the evidence for this skeleton that's buried in the ground next to the Kaaba, I would love to see it. Thank you. That would prove Islam. That would prove Islam today. We can all say Shahada. Don't you think so, Adam?
Absolutely. Like, come on, man. The 90 feet tall thing. By the way, why is there as a leaf on his private part?
Because this is a family friendly channel, Adam.
Oh, okay. Because apparently Adam did not even have a leaf. It's not Bible. Bible says that when they were able, they ate from the tree of the life and the wisdom.
Yeah.
They
So
knew, and then God actually put them covers made of skin of animal, obviously skin. So they had clothes, but in Quran they do not have these kind of clothes at all, and that's another big dilemma. And Quran never talks about the tree of life and wisdom as well. Quran has no idea about it whatsoever. Third, Quran doesn't even know that Adam was not in the earth. Quran talks about Adam being in Jannah, in the heaven. So there is a lot of conflict. And then Adam was thrown into the earth. How? God knows how. And then Adam
well, don't
supposedly
forget,
built
Satan was thrown out of paradise to
way
the
before.
earth before Adam,
Yeah,
yet somehow he's there afterwards talking to Eve and Adam. How
exactly.
does that
Because
happen?
Satan's so that is why later on Allah built the stars. Remember? So when the Satan or the devils try to go into Jannah, Allah shoots the star at the devils, the genies. Remember? So Allah
Yeah,
made the
but you know
stars so.
in Islam, do you know that in Islam, according to Islamic beliefs, the stars are higher beings that have a soul. In other words, they're alive.
Ex- Brother, that's the whole thing. So imagine that when
Now, there's
Allah.
a reason for that, though. You see, because once as we get into this presentation, as we go into the future, and we start to discuss the moon god and the sun god and the children they have, the children of the moon god and the sun god are the stars.
MashaAllah.
You
But
see,
right now I'm
and
talking about
therefore,
something else. Just give me a
okay,
sec.
go on. Yeah.
Bear with me, and understand what I'm saying. When Allah put Adam in the Jannah and the Eve in the Jannah, right? Supposedly there were no stars. right? Allah threw Allah threw the devil, the genie devil, out of Jannah, out of the heaven, into the earth probably. And then Adam, the jinn, or the, because he was a jinn, so devil was a jinn according to Islam, the genie of the bottle. So he flew back to Jannah, and there was no
Mm.
adornment which Allah could throw on him. Okay, there were none because they were later created later. So he actually dig some hole and went inside the Jannah and deceived Eve. So when Allah threw Adam and Eve into the earth, then Allah put the stars over the earth, because you know why? So that the devil would not come in the Jannah again. This is Quran. Quran says, and we have adorned the lowest heaven with the stars so that we could throw them as missiles. This is the latest translation, as missile over the genies who would want to get into the heaven. I'm not saying that Quran is saying that. It's not even Hadith. It's the Quran. So, brother, that's how these things works. FYI.
Right. So, by the way, Alleluia is Jah, not Bible. Please. So this is the 90-foot atom, which is part of the Islamic belief and claim. And I would hate to say that Islam is false, so you can easily prove it's true by please show us the archaeological evidence for this man who is buried next to the Kaaba. If you can show us where he's buried with his 90-foot skeleton and the 300 saints that are buried, the 300 prophets buried next to the Kaaba, please just show us some evidence and we will know that Islam is true. So I'm still waiting for you to give us the evidence because I
Brother,
see you are unable.
he's a keyboard
Right,
jihadi, as we can see, because he does not have the courage to come up. From the last, I don't know, 10 minutes, the live stream link is in the chat.
right.
If he had two
Yep.
cents of the guts, he could come up.
Yeah, so enough spending wasting time on him. So, Axum. Axum is the first African country to mint its own coins in gold, silver, and bronze, and in the standard weight categories of the Roman Empire because they traded extensively with Rome. These coins are recovered in multiple foreign locations, as far away as India, and they were also the first Christian kingdom to put crosses on coins. Right? So, notice here, these are some Aksumite coins, and they have crosses on their coins. Okay, so they're actually busy putting crosses on their coins, right? They were the first kingdom to do so.
Why would
Now,
they even do that? Aren't they Muslims?
no, well, they were first pagans and then they converted.
Yeah,
Now,
that's the whole
according
thing.
to Islamic legend, of course, after the first hijrah goes to Ethiopia. And of course, there the king claims that they claim that the king was a Muslim, a secret Muslim, that he believed what they said about Jesus and he accepted them. But that's another story for another day because it
Oh,
seems that, yeah,
by the way, they did not say what they believed. They said Isa, Jesus, was the son of Maryam. Okay, this is Ibn Ishaq. This is literally Ibn Ishaq. They went there, and the kuffar says that they do not accept what your belief is. They are antichrist. This is Siratun Nabi by Ibn Ishaq. I will search the page and I will let you know the page number in a bit. But let's hear the story.
I
So
can I can bring up the reference. I have it within the notes.
okay, so while you bring it up, it's in Siratun Nabi by Ibn Ishaq. They went there, the kuffar, and Jafar actually came up and he said, we believe in Isa, the son of Mary, who is the word of God, the Kalimatullah, the Kalam Allah, the word of God, okay, bestowed upon Mary, who is Ruhu Minhu, who is the spirit of Allah, and we believe him. So if a Christian will hear just this and nothing more, nothing less, what will he say? They are not saying anything wrong. They are saying exactly what we believe in. Because
Yeah.
we already know what Kalamullah and Ruh Allah is. Exactly. So please show, brother. In the meantime, I will try to
Actually,
find that.
let's get into. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's get to that a little bit later. Let's finish this. Let's just step forward as we go. So their coins, they had crosses on their coins, right? They were very much a Christian empire. Now the Aksumite ruler was called the Negusa Nagas, the king of kings, the king of emperors. Well, the emperor who had many kings under him. Now we have King Azana. He ruled from about 320 to 360 AD, and he converted to Christianity as verified by the Aksumite coins. So they were a Christian kingdom. Azana previously had coins with pagan disc and crescent. You might notice that this is very much the Islamic symbol. So the disc and crescent, right? But his later coins have crosses on them. Now, I need to tell you that this is not always the sun. Sometimes this is the sun, but very often it's actually the star. They mean Venus here usually, or they have the disc representing the star. So you had the crescent and the star. Again, don't forget, they were pagan moon worshippers. They worshipped the moon god Al-Makka. This is the moon, okay? The much bigger moon and the much smaller star, right? So notice there's multiple of these coins with King Azana on them, and here you've got the moon. So you can see he was worshipping Al-Makka when he was a pagan. Here's another example of the moon being worshipped. He's the first Christian king to put the crosses on currency. So you can see now they replaced these moons, right, and the star with crosses. They became Christians and they left behind their pagan religion, their moon worshipping Babylonian pagan religion. Now, Ethiopia becomes the first Christian state. They rival Armenia, and they might even be prior to Armenia, right? So they became the first sub-Saharan African state to become Christians. King Azana proclaimed Christianity the state religion in the early 4th century. And in fact, it seems that these people were Christianized to some degree in the early 200s already. For a century before, Roman traders had brought knowledge of the Christian religion to the Aksumite mercantile network, the trade network. This was how the religion spread, how Christianity spread through the trade network. In the 6th century, the Aksumite king Ghalib sent a force across the Red Sea to subdue the Yemenites. He dominated South Arabia for 70 years. So therefore, he sent Christians, a whole Christian army, thousands of them, into Arabia, and they went all the way up as far as Mecca, right? So the Byzantine emperor supported Aksum largely due to Yemen's persecution of Christians. So they had a dominant influence, not only militarily, but also financially with trade across all of South Arabia and also southwestern Arabia. Now, the first church in sub-Saharan Africa. This is also very important. Now, Smithsonian Magazine tells us that a church unearthed in Ethiopia rewrites the history of Christianity in Africa. Archaeologists can now more closely date when the religion spread to the Aksumite Empire. Let's go have a look. This church rewrites the history of Christianity in Africa, right? So this is a site in Ethiopia. And they found the oldest known Christian church in sub-Saharan Africa. And it sheds light, of course, on the Aksumite Empire and how early it converted to Christianity. We have records of Christianity and temples there from the early 200s. And these people they embraced Christianity by the late 200s, early 300s. So this empire would go on to dominate much of Eastern Africa and Western Arabia. Now, people thought that Christianity entered that region much later, 5th, 6th century. It seems now we're looking at 3rd century, 4th century, so 200 years before people were thinking that it even got there. Okay, and in fact, they found this church that was built in the 4th century. That's the early 4th century, about the same time that Constantine legalized Christianity in 313 CE. So this temple though dates to before that. It dates to the 3rd century, but they converted it to a Christian church in the 4th century, it seems. So Christianity arrived nearly 3,000 miles from Rome in the 3rd century. So the religion spread through long-distance trading networks. So we can also then from this learn that even Islam and also the paganism spread through trade networks. New ideas spread to the trade networks. And this is how these ideas crossed the world, right? So these trade networks linked the Mediterranean by the Red Sea with Africa and Asia. So Aksum was one of the most influential ancient civilizations, but it also remains one of the least known. Right. They traded by camel, by donkey, and boat. They channeled silver, olive oil, and wine from the Mediterranean cities along the Indian Ocean. Right. So notice this cross here. You can see already they've got a cross here. And Christianity reached Egypt by the 3rd century, but it was not until Constantine's legalization of Christianity that the church expanded across Europe and the Near East. However, at the same time that Christianity was in Egypt, it was actually present below Egypt in sub-Saharan Africa, in this case being Ethiopia, who transported it into Arabia. So I'll just continue a little bit here. So there were temples built in a southern Arabian style dating back to many centuries. So you have these early pagan temples that came from BC, right? The temples reflect the influence of the Sabaeans who dominated at the time. And notice you've got this temple is 60 feet long and 40 feet wide, exactly the same size as the temples of the moon god Makkah. And what they did
Wow.
was they knocked down the temple and they built a Christian basilica. Your
Unbelievable,
thoughts,
man.
Adam?
Unbelievable coincidences if they are.
Yeah.
If Muslims do not believe that to be, then it is unbelievable coincidences that are one after another piling up.
And now what they say is that all this collection of artifacts shows that there was a mixing of pagan and early Christian traditions. So the pagan traditions were mixing with the Christian traditions, and the pagans were adopting some of these beliefs. The pagans were taking on some of these beliefs. And here you've got the bull symbol with the horns, the crescent horns, which is the sign of the moon god.
Oh
Okay.
man, man, that is crazy.
So they tell us here from the Smithsonian that the spread of Christianity was linked to commerce, right? And long distance trade routes played a significant role in the introduction of Christianity into Ethiopia, and the Aksumite kingdom was a major center at the time. So I'm going to skip that and I'll move on from here. Okay, so hopefully that was interesting. Now, the very first hijrah in Islam was to Abyssinia, to Ethiopia. So Muslims ran to Christian Aksum, which is Ethiopian Eritrea, around 614 AD. When the apostle saw the affliction of his companions and that thought and that though he escaped it because of his standing with Allah and his uncle Abu Talib, he could not protect them. And he said, if you were to go to Ethiopia, it would be better for you, for the king will not tolerate injustice, and it is a friendly country. Now, the question is, how did he know it's a friendly country? How did he know the king was just? Thereupon his companions went to Abyssinia. This was the first hijrah in Islam,
So it was
right?
the
Now,
okay. Hold on, hold on,
yeah.
hold on, hold on. This is very important point. This is very important point. For the love of God, stop.
Why Ethiopia?
No, 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 yeah. Why Ethiopia? Number one, number two. How did Muhammad know that the king of Ethiopia, Abyssinia, is a God-fearing, loving king who will not do what? This is Siratun Nabi by Ibn Ishaq, page number 140. Let me just
Six.
see.
Or it says Ibn Ishaq 146.
146. 146. Okay. Yeah, you have already written that there. So, brother, hold on. This is a very important point. I'm gonna take control of the screen for a moment. Okay. Please do not mind that. This is very important point. This is Siratun Nabi by Ibn Ishaq. This is page number 152. Let me go to 147. 48, 47, 46, 46. When the
There it is, yeah.
apostle saw the affliction of his companion and that thought he escaped it because of his standing with Allah and his uncle Abu Talib, basically not Allah, the Abu Talib, basically, he could not protect them. He said to them, if you were go to Abyssinia, it would be better for you, for the king will not tolerate injustice, and it is a friendly country until such time as Allah shall relieve you from your distress. How did Muhammad came to know about all this? Because these people are the same people who come in and say, hey, how did Greek mythology came to Arab? How did uh, um, the Greek doctor information came to the Arab? How did
Trade.
Muhammad knew what the Greek was saying?
Well,
Abyssinia. How
now
did
ask
Muhammad knew
yourself
about
this
Abyssinia?
question. Which two, according to Islamic sources, which two languages did Muhammad speak? He spoke two languages. Which are the two languages?
Hmm.
Well, Muhammad spoke Arabic, and the other one was?
Ethiopian,
Correct.
because he talks about it.
Muhammad spoke Arabic and Ethiopian. Those are the only two languages he spoke. Now, Muhammad's first muezzin was an Ethiopian. Muhammad's midwife,
Was
sorry,
Ethiopian?
the woman who looked after him as a baby, she was Ethiopian.
Ethiopian. So why did Muhammad's midwife go all the way to Ethiopia or come all the way from Ethiopia? Why did Muhammad say, even if your king is an Ethiopian raisin head, accept him? Like he
But
would he
understand,
would say raisin head and say then again he would say accept him.
no. there was a lot of connections. So we will still get into that in the future, but there was a lot of
So,
connections with Ethiopia. There's enormous number of connections with Ethiopia. We'll get into all of this, but as I'm laying out this so that we can set the stage here.
and then Abbasian being afraid of apostasy and fleeing to God with their religion, this was the first hijrah of Islam. Now, this is the first hijrah, yet they knew what the Abbasians are. Brother, now I want to bring to the point that I was actually saying earlier to the people for to know as well that I was not lying, because this is very important. Page number 152 of the same book. The kuffar said, by God, I will tell him that they asserted Jesus, son of Mary, is a creature.
Yep.
Acha, now this is very important. This is very important. The kuffar says that I will tell the king, the Abbasian king, that Jesus, son of Mary, is a creature, a created being. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they knew that the Abbasi king is a Christian who believes in Jesus Christ to be God. Right? Now look at the deception of Allah and his verses. He went to him in the morning and told him this. They said a dreadful thing about Jesus, son of Mary, and that they should send them and ask them about it. He did so. Nothing of the kind happened. Now, what happens? Jafar answered. Muhammad's companion, Jafar answered. We
And
say,
supposedly,
we say about him that which our prophet brought, saying, he is the slave of our God. This is Philippians chapter number 2, verse number 6. He is the servant, or some translations say slave, and his apostle. This is also in multiple biblical, that Jesus Christ was the apostle, he was the messenger, and his spirit. As a Christian, spirit of God is God. As a Christian, every Christian says spirit of God is God, except for Muhammad, because Muhammad, when people ask Muhammad, he said, Quran told me you do not know about the ruh, the spirit, only Allah knows about the ruh. But every Christian knows, when you say Jesus Christ is his spirit, then Jesus Christ is divine. He is God himself and his word. This is John chapter number 1. The word of God, right? Verse number 14, became flesh, which he casted unto Mary, the blessed virgin. Christian, just this information, nothing more, nothing less. Can any Christian believe or say that Islam denies the divinity of Jesus Christ? Don't tell them
no,
anything
not
else.
really.
Just this.
No, they would deceive you this way.
This is how they deceive you, brother. This is how they deceived the Abbasian king. This is how they have been deceiving Christians since the beginning. This is how they are even deceiving right now to the Christians who does not know their own books. That's the reality of the situation, brother. That's why this page was very important. But please continue with your stream. Now I'm
Yeah.
gonna add you
Okay.
back in.
So this is where Muhammad's followers, the Sahaba, they fled the persecution of the Quraysh tribe. They went to Ethiopia. Now, the Aksumite king who received them is known as the Negus in Arabic, the Najasi, Ashama ibn Abjar, and some of the exiles returned to Mecca and they made the 622 Hijrah to Medina with Muhammad, but others remained in Abyssinia until they came to Medina in 628. So they were there for approximately 15 years in Ethiopia. Now, we need to understand that numerous of the practices of Islam are also derived from, some of them, from Christianity, right? So the Ethiopian Christian church happens to have a lot of Jewish tones to it, a lot of Jewish characteristics to it. Like they believe in circumcision, they believe in the Book of Enoch, they separate the men and women, they veil in themselves in church, they take their shoes off, and all of these things Islam then took because of these Muslims that were exposed to the Ethiopians. But again, that's for the future. But understand, they took a lot of those practices straight out of Ethiopia, including the word Tawhid, the concept of the Tawhid, which means unity. It doesn't mean a single monolithic entity, it means a unity. Okay? It's based on the unity of God, the multiple natures. But That's something again for the future. So they stole that all of there. Okay, I'm going to skip this bit about. So we've just spoken about that, so I'll skip over that. So some Islamic links to Ethiopia. So let's have a look at Ethiopia for a little bit. Okay, the Christian community in South Arabia at Najran was perhaps the oldest Christian community in Arabia. Now, of course, Nestorianism is considered a heresy, right? It's an issue about the nature of Christ and the personhood of Christ. I'm not going to get into that in much depth right now. But understand, you have Christians who believed that Christ did not have the same kind of divine nature that we believe today. They believed there was, hold on, Nestorianism. Just help me define. Actually, no. So you had a heretical view of Christ, which was present at Najran, which was the major Christian center, the center of pilgrimage in Arabia. So what happened was Najran actually was known as Arabia Heresium Ferax. Okay, Arabia Heresium Ferax, which means Arabia, the bearer of heresies, because this was a Christian center, but you had a large number of heretical Christians living there, and along with a number of Gnostic groups that had been kicked out of the Roman Empire, and they all ended up in Najran. Okay, so now many of them were Nestorians,
This
and
is
others
crazy,
were
man.
Monophysites, and they were related to the Monophysite Church of Abyssinia. So the Ethiopian church at that time was monophysitic, which was a heresy. And this is very much the same heresy that Islam preaches about Jesus. Yes?
I'm getting amazed day by day, man. When you show these kind of references, it is crazy. By the way, do send the link of this presentation so far, and I will add it to the stream as well later on.
All right. Now, in international trade, Abyssinia was the destination of normal Arab trade convoys went to Ethiopia. So Qusay's one of his four sons, according to Ibn Habib. Okay, you had Abd Shams. Okay, the Nasrani sect are not Nestorian. Look, I didn't make that up. I'm just reading it out of the encyclopedia here, but fine. So what you've got Abd
This is
Shams, the slave.
let's give him the link. This is Rob Christian. This is the Brill Encyclopedia of Islam, FYI.
Yeah, it should be the
So
Berlin Encyclopedia. Just so understand you've got all of these a large number of Christians in Najran, but also these heretics and also these Gnostics. Okay, and the Abyssinian church, there was a major fallout much later in the 450s. There was a massive fallout because of this whole monophysite heresy idea, which was unfortunately part of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church at the time, right? Which unfortunately this idea made its way into Muhammad's mind. Okay, whoever Muhammad was, but that's another story. Now, this name Abd Shams happens to be very important because Shams is the name of a pagan god. So Abd Shams, slave of, so this is the slave of Shams. We'll get into who Shams is later, but understand. So many of these names, for instance, multiple of the names of the Quran's books, the chapters, are named after pagan gods. Okay, so there were trade relations between Makkah and Ethiopia. Notice Makkah, like Al Makkah, that went back to the late 5th or early 6th century. Right, let's continue. So now the Arabic Injil, by the way, if we should mention, the Arabic word Injil resembles the Ethiopian Wanjil. Sorry, I made a typo here. I need to fix this, okay? This is a typo here. So the term Injil in Arabic, now remember, the Arabic language derives from the Ethiopic language, right? In fact, the Ethiopic is the closest Semitic language to Arabic. So you've got Injil, Wanjil, Wanjil, Injil, very, very similar, right? The word had already been introduced into Arabia by Abyssinian Christians at the beginning of the 6th century. In fact, we now know it was well before that. The generally accepted origin is Greek, Evangelion or Euangelion, the good news, entering the Arabic via the Ethiopic Wanjil. According to Arthur Jeffrey, the long vowel ending in Wanjil, like the long second syllable of Injil, is a close resemblance. It's closer than the Syriac because most people feel that it went, you've got Evangelion or Euangelion to the Syriac, to the Arabic, but in fact, it's much closer. Sure. But what happens is now you've actually got a much closer linguistic connection because of the closeness of the language. Like I said, Ethiopic is the closest Semitic language to Arabic. It's the closest one. So you've got Euangelion to the Wanjil to Injil. even a better route than the supposed Syriac connection. Right. Now, Abyssinian, philologically, Ethiopic, the ancient language of Abyssinia, is the most closely related to Arabic of all the Semitic languages. Ethiopic and Arabic with the language, so blah, blah, blah. I just want to highlight that point. So the language of Ethiopia is very close, and thus we can trace a number of these words into the original Ethiopic, which is much older. So now these contacts, now they mention here that from the ancient Ge'ez, okay, was presumably this ancient language from which the Arabs were in contact in pre-Islamic days and during Muhammad's lifetime. These contacts were fairly close. Okay, but previous to the birth of Muhammad, the southern portion of Arabia had been under Abyssinian rule. And of course, you've got the year of the elephant when Mecca was saved from the Abyssinian army. And there were trade relations, despite this, between Abyssinia and Arabia at a much earlier period than the Aksumite occupation of Yemen. And friendly relations continued in spite of the year of the elephant. Okay, so Muhammad obviously sent his followers to Abyssinia, and Meccan merchants employed Abyssinian troops. It should also be noted that, by the way, just so we'll get into this a little bit later, but the elephants, okay, that went apparently up to Mecca, right, with Abraha, right? The lead elephant was a white elephant, and the lead elephant's name was. Did you know what the name of the lead elephant was, Adam?
I did not remember that.
So the elephant in charge of the invasion of
Ibraha.
Mecca.
No, that was the name of the guy.
No,
Sorry.
Abraha was the name of the general that
Yeah.
went up there, but the name of the lead elephant happens to be Mahmud, which is the short version of Muhammad,
No kidding.
and a white elephant called Mahmud, and the white elephant stopped outside of Mecca and refused to go in.
So Mahmud, the praised worthy, that's the translation. Mahmud, the one
Yes,
who is worthy of the praises.
yes,
Wow, what is
yeah.
happening, man? And
Now,
and by the way, XYZ is saying, by the way, I made a video long time ago about the elephants. How did the elephants travel in the desert? Because the wells have a capacity that you can take an X amount of water per day from a well. Otherwise, the well will dry up, and you have to wait for the water to come out again.
right,
So most of the wells in the desert are like that. So the elephant drinks so much water, and I did the calculation in one of my live stream. It is not possible for so many of these elephants to go to Mecca. That's another made up story. If
correct.
if Kaaba is in Mecca, the Kaaba has to be inside Yemen for the elephant to reach there. Otherwise, the elephant cannot even reach there.
Yeah, correct. I mean, that story is fishy, but so notice just to get so we're going to briefly touch on Ethiopia, then we'll shift almost entirely to Yemen. We'll start talking mostly about Yemen. So the first nurse, right? So Muhammad had personal contact with Ethiopians. There's numerous references to Ethiopia and Ethiopians reciting the Bible, Muhammad listening to them reciting the Bible. There was an Ethiopian Bible apparently in Arabia as early as the 300s, which they would quote out of, and of course services were given. And then what would happen is they would paraphrase this Ethiopic Bible into the Arabic. So they never had it written, and they didn't have it exactly word for word. So you have paraphrasing of the Bible into Arabic, okay, from the Ethiopic. Now, Muhammad's first nurse was an Abyssinian woman called Ayman. The man he chose as the first muezzin was Bilal al-Habashi, an Ethiopian. And of course, Muhammad was apparently highly skilled in the Ethiopic language, which is the only other language he spoke.
At this moment, I would say, mashallah,
Yeah,
because seriously, this is so. Yet these Abdul, who just ran away after I shared the live stream link, he just spoke maybe 10 minutes afterwards, and I called him out to come up live. He just ran away. That's how easy it is to destroy these people. There are so many sources which are agreeing to our narrative that you are showing right now, versus zero, which could agree to his narrative.
yeah. Well, they don't care about the facts. So fine, okay. So now we change pace. So now I'll go on for a little bit until you tell me to stop or I fall asleep because it's 20 to midnight here. But let's continue. So now we're going to talk about the Islamic symbolism. Now notice we're going to find out that this is a pagan symbol. It's a Babylonian symbol. Okay, this is a Babylonian pagan symbol, symbolic of the moon god. Okay, and it's on top of every mosque and we have to believe that this is not pagan and it is
Yeah,
somehow.
but by the way, why I would ask a Muslim why there is a moon sign in almost every single mosque. Even in Pakistan
What
right now, when they build a mosque, they have a moon sign. Even in the map of Pakistan, sorry, flag of Pakistan, we have a moon and a star.
we're going to look at some of that exactly. Those questions must be asked, and we're going to dig deep into that. So notice it's called the hilal, the crescent, and this is Islam's symbol along with the star. You should also be aware that hilal happens to be the name of a pagan moon god.
No,
Yes,
I thought Hilal means moon.
Hilal is the name of a pagan moon god worshipped in Arabia.
No kidding. I thought Hilal is a the arcs type moon. Like when it is not fully there, it's just an arc moon, like the second or the third day of the moon.
Now,
Wow.
XYZ says rotate the crescent and you get a pair of horns. Now, the further north you go, the more this thing dips down. So the further north you go, okay, the further north that you go, the more the moon crescent starts to become flat and it lies horizontal. Okay, so from our perspective, wherever we are in the world, it might be like this. But as you go further north, it becomes those horns like that. You see? So that's why in some places it's like this horizontal, sorry, vertical. In other places it's horizontal because it's where they are in the world. Okay, so let's have a look at the flags of these countries. Now, the evidence is very clear, and it has been written. I will provide the evidence later, the discussion from the scholarly view, that these flags, okay, so these flags here, these symbols of the crescent and the star, is derived from the worship of the Babylonian moon god Sin. Okay, the Babylonian moon god Sin, known as Shin. Okay, so Sin is the moon god worshipped in Babylon, worshipped in Canaan, worshipped all over Arabia, worshipped in Yemen, worshipped in Arabia, worshipped in Mecca. Okay, so notice you've got the same symbol of the moon god, also worshipped in Ethiopia, right? So you've got the star, and notice this is a pentagram. Okay, you've got the moon and stars, you've got the moon and stars, and so on. So we'll continue, right? So this is the pentagram of the star. This is the flag of Morocco. This is the pentagram. The pentagram is a Babylonian symbol. It is pagan. It is the symbol of the god Ishtar and the Babylonian god Marduk. Okay, the red also comes from the Imams of Yemen. And the pentagram also happens to be the seal of Solomon, because Solomon unfortunately indulged. He married pagan women, which was not something he was not to do. And of course, he indulged in paganism. Right. Thank you very much, Srijan. So understand you've got all of these pagan symbols. These are pagan symbols that go back a very long time on these flags of Islam. And we're supposed to believe these are not pagan. Imagine we had a pagan symbol, or that chapters of the Bible were named after pagan gods. Imagine we had a chapter of the Bible called Marduk and a chapter called, I don't know, whatever, Baal,
The
right? Imagine
cow
Jesus.
or
Think
Scorpio
about that.
or
Sorry?
the cow or the spider or the moon or all of
Correct.
these. By the way, one thing I do not like about your presentation, you have to add it now or later, but you have to add it. Where is the Pakistani flag? I just don't
I
like you
thought I had
anymore.
it here. Where's the Pakistan?
Yeah,
Where is the
there is none.
Pakistani
Like
flag?
I don't like it anymore now. So
I'm so sorry.
so next time you have to have the Pakistani flag in there. It
Right.
is. It
Okay.
has a.
So
It has a. It has a green background and a moon and a star all in one, and with a white strip on the side as well. You gotta add it. That's just sort not fair at all.
you're right. You're right. So you've got all this pagan stuff. Okay. So notice this is an actual pentagram. I went to a site to look up an occult pentagram. It's exactly the same pentagram as Morocco, but we have to believe that this is holy and not pagan and not occult worship somehow.
Somehow we have to
Okay.
believe that. Yes.
So now the crescent, is it Ottoman or is it pagan? Now, they love to tell us that this symbol was popularized by the Ottoman Islamic Empire in the 1840s. They want to tell us that this symbol, the crescent and the moon, only comes from the 1840s. Okay. Others state that it is pre Islamic pagan deity, a moon god. And religious symbols, as we know, are historically and theologically very significant to us. The cross is linked to the crucifixion of Christ. It is logical, therefore, that the crescent moon has a historical and theological significance and meaning for Islam, right? So Islam claims, unfortunately, to be the original and true monotheistic or shall we say monotheistic, religion of Abraham. So they claim to be the original religion of Abraham. So before Abraham met Yahweh, right, before he started worshiping Yahweh, Abraham happened to be a Sabaean. Okay, according to the evidence, he was a Sabaean. We've just met the Sabaeans. They were in Aksum, they were in Yemen, they were moon worshippers. They worshipped the moon god Al-Makka. Al-Makka also happened to be known as Allah. Of course, Al-Makka also was known as Sin, who was the Babylonian moon god, the main god of Babylon. So Al-Makka is Sin, is Allah, who is a moon god, the main god of Babylon. Your thoughts, Adam?
Brother, number one, even in Quran, it says that Abraham worshipped the moon, the star, and the sun. And then suddenly, in the next verse, he said, "Oh, everyone sets, so I worship Allah." So now, suddenly, you see, if you look at the verses, you will see the verses says Abraham worshiped the moon, and it sets. He said, "Okay, this is not my God." Worship the sun, and it said it. Oh, this is not my God because it set. The star, and it set. And Abraham said, "Oh, I worship Allah." And suddenly he started worship Allah. There is no logical argument in that, because out of the
Correct.
blue, Abraham was able to see all his life that the sun rises and the sun sets, the moon rises and the moon sets, the star comes and the star goes. So he knew that since the very beginning.
Yep.
So what was happening? Suddenly, how does he becomes the worshipper of Allah? And which Allah? Allah at the time of Abraham was Shin, was Baal. By the way, the Muhammad's grandfather Abdul Muttalib tried to sacrifice his son, which is the father of Muhammad, Abdullah, in front
Mm-hmm.
of Baal,
And Baal was called Allah at the time.
the law, the God. Yes. So he, Muhammad, knew that his father was about to be sacrificed in front of Baal, which is the law of that particular time. And Abdul Muttalib gave 100 camels sacrifice instead of Abdullah to save the Abdullah's life. This is Islam. This is
Yep.
Islam, man. This is
Now
in
we will
Sirat.
learn that
Sorry,
we will
brother.
learn that Abdul Muttalib also happened to sanctify Muhammad to, well, he actually took Muhammad and he to Hubal. So Muhammad was sanctified to Hubal
Muhammad was
at the
sanctified to
Kaaba.
Hubal, as well as Muhammad was sanctified to Samad. So the
And
mother of
Muhammad
Muhammad,
also happened to worship Alat, Manat, and Al Uzza. We'll get into all of this, right? Because
yeah,
I
and
want to.
Muhammad's mother, just to add to this point, Muhammad's mother actually took Muhammad when he was born and placed him under the feet of Samad. Samad is another deity which was there at the time of that particular time. There were three major gods as well at that time: Samad, Samud, and Al Hiba. So these were the three gods they were also worshipping, and Muhammad was placed under the feet of Samad. This is in Tabakat ibn Sa'ad. Okay, so this is also historical event, and Abdullah was about to be sacrificed to Baal. So all of them were pagans. All
Yes, no,
of
we're
them
gonna
were
go into
pagans.
we're going to go into that, and that is true. So yeah, so we'll wrap up soon here because it's going to be 1 a.m. in the morning for me, as someone mentioned. So we'll get into all of this. But guys, so there's a lot more to come. So this is just I'm introducing this so we have a basis to work from. But then the word Hanif comes up suddenly, and the plural is Hunafa. And in Islamic writings, right, the one who follows the original and the true monotheistic religion. In the Quran, Hanif is used especially of Abraham, and Islamic usage occasionally uses Hanif as the equivalent of Muslim, and the Hanifiya is the religion of Abraham or Islam. What is interesting is that we know that the pagan worship was almost identical to modern Islam. right? The same practices, the same laws, the same rituals, right? The same worship, the same format of prayer. We know that Abraham, they reject Judaism as we describe it in the Bible of Abraham. So what they say is that Abraham could not have been a Jew because, there was whatever they claim is that Abraham was not a Jew, and therefore they want to go to the original religion of Abraham. And Abraham, according to the Jews himself, and according to even the Quran and the Islamic sources, worshipped the moon, right? And according to Jewish sources, he was a Sabaean, which means he worshipped Al-Makkah. Al-Makkah, who was also known as Sin, who was also known as Allah. We'll get into all of this. We'll present all of this. So understand. So they want to go to the original religion of Abraham. But of course, if you think that the original religion of Abraham was obviously moon worship, they had to, well, hide portions of that. They had to conceal portions of that. Right? Now, the term Hanif in Arabic, okay, you can see it in Hebrew. It's an Arabic masculine name, means a righteous person or true believer, and it is agreed that Hanif is derived from the Syriac word Hanpe, which means heathen or pagan.
Ouch. But by the way,
Yes,
Allah is Hanif, you know that.
yes, correct.
That's one of his names, man.
So Abraham is a pagan, which is a word meaning Muslim, which is
Wow.
very, very odd. A Muslim is a pagan, according to Islam's own definition, with Abraham being a pagan moon worshipper.
So we already know that Abraham, because Muslims do not believe that Abraham was ever a pagan. FYI, Muslims claim that Abraham was never a pagan. Okay, even though the Quran talks differently about Abraham, but Muslims claim that he was never a pagan. But at the same time, when we look at Abraham, he was a pagan. He believed in the pagan god, and because they denounced the Torah, what is written in the Torah, they actually is worshipping the Abraham before he accepted the true Lord God. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, before he accepted the true God, the Yahweh, the true El, he was a pagan worshiper.
All right. So our brother Rob Christian says Hanpa is Aramaic and Hanpa is Hanifa is Hithan. I have no
Heathen,
idea.
heathen, a
Heathen.
heathen,
Okay.
a pagan. A heathen is a pagan.
Hey, good. Hey, good, brother Rob. Thank you so very much. Allah who was Samad. Yes, Muhammad. Allah is Samad, and Samad is the idol of the Quraysh in Makkah. Yes, you are
Yeah.
absolutely right, Mr.
Now,
Muhammad.
Now, notice that Muslims claim that Muhammad's religion goes back before Judaism. So they're saying that the religion of Muhammad goes back before Judaism and Christianity, before the Christians and Jews went astray and corrupted the religion, the original religion. Now, we know that from before the time of the laws of Moses, before the Mosaic law, there were the laws of Noah, the seven laws of Noah, which are the precursor to the Ten Commandments, right? So prior to the law being written, prior to the law of Sinai, right, which is the law of Moses, the Ten Commandments plus the 613 mitzvot, you had the seven laws of Noah, which are very similar to the Ten Commandments, word for word. Five of them are identical to the Ten Commandments, and then of course apparently you had 100 unwritten laws. Okay, so these were the oral law as well attached to those. However, so we know from a Christian point of view, and you'll find also that within the Sirah, when they talk about these Muslims that go and try and find, so Muhammad sends these companions out to find the original, what was the original religion of Abraham, they actually do mention several of the laws of Noah. Okay. However, they obviously reject Judaism, they reject Christianity, they reject the Bible, and of course, what they will find is the religion of Yemen. So,
Oh my goodness. Hold on, brother. Hold on.
yep.
When you said certain words, I did not want it to break you, but
Mm,
look at your point number 4. Remove the rest of the points if you can.
mm.
Can you?
This
Okay,
this
point number
one.
4. Point number 4. Religion of Abraham. So you right now, just a few seconds ago, you stated that Muslim believe in Abrahamic's original religion because Muslim says that Abraham was not a Jew and not a Christian. By the way, do you know that it's a verse of the Quran?
Actually, no.
Okay, let me tell you, this claim is coming directly from Quran, brother. This is Quran, chapter number 3, verse number 67. When you said that, I was like, wow. I was like, I need to go and verify that. So, ma kana Ibrahim Yahudan wala Nasrani, walakinna kana Hanifan, Hanifan. You are just saying Hanifan, okay? Hanifan Muslima, wa ma kana min al mushrikeen. Abraham
Hmm.
was neither a Jew nor a Christian, but he was one inclining towards the truth, a Muslim, and he was not a polytheist. Hanifan is not is like true. Hanifan is they translate it in Arabic as a true believer, true Muslim. Okay, now imagine, brother, what you just showed right now. Let me go back to what you are saying. This is Quran chapter number 3, verse number 67. FYI, anybody who does not want Hanifan, Hanifan is Hanif basically. Musliman is Muslim,
True
in
Muslim.
essence,
Oh
right?
wow.
So now you are actually showing me, go back to the definition of the Hanif, which you are showing on this page. So what you just stated is a evidence that Muslims are going back to the Abrahamic original religion, supposed religion, which is not
Paganism.
the biblical one, which is the paganism or whatever you may like to call it. So, so Islam is an Abrahamic cult. That just proves it, brother.
Yep. There's man. This gets weird as we go further. I mean, this starts to get really weird. I mean, it's 3 minutes to 1 a.m. here for me. It's nearly 1 a.m. in the morning. So, did you want to invite anyone on? Because otherwise, we can leave it here and I can continue next time. But it's a good
We can
place to leave
continue
it.
next time because the stream link is already in the stream. Any Muslim could have joined in. And the guys who were typing in the chat, they could have joined in if they wanted, because from the last 1 hour, the link was in the
Hmm.
stream. Imagine that. They don't have any evidence. We have all the evidences. We are showing what their scriptures are saying, what their most authoritative scholars are saying. Even the Quran is agreeing with us, FYI. Even the Quran is agreeing with us. So
Yeah.
I have I have 4 dislikes so far, which means I have 4 Muslims in the live chat so far. Nobody came up.
Right. So even in the Jewish literature, right, the root, the triliteral root, HNF, is associated with heretics. Okay? And in Syriac
Hanif.
documents, Hanpa, okay, the plural Hanpe means a non-Christian pagan. This is the Hanif, a non-Christian pagan.
Come on, man, you are killing it. You do know that what you are doing. You are demolishing the rock on which the whole foundation of Islam is standing on.
I mean, I hope so. So I wanted to hopefully introduce this in a different way to explain, but we're going to get into a lot of interesting things. Let me actually bring up some. Let me see if I can find where we'll be going with this. But understand, Muhammad had two sons named after pagan gods. Muhammad and Khadija worshipped pagan gods, right? We're going to be learning about all sorts of fascinating things about Abraham. And then also we're going to solve the mystery of Makaraba. We're going to start learning about how Hajar, with her son Ishmael, walked 1,200 kilometers across the desert with one jug of water all the way to Mecca.
And then they reached
Right.
Makkah, and then only their jug of water went off. So yeah, that's another
Yeah.
stupidity, anyways.
And then
And
also
then
there's a couple of other fancy things we're going to learn. For instance, Burak. Okay. So look, there's plenty that's coming in the future, but and I'll just introduce briefly. But Burak, take Burak. The term Burak means lightning. Okay. But Burak has a lot of, actually, let's just quickly go into that. Why not? So
no,
Burak,
no, no,
as
no,
you
no,
know,
no, no. We are not going into deep right
okay,
now. Just give us some spoilers of the next videos so that they would all know what's coming up. So give us more spoilers of the next videos. So guys, as some of you said, please give your conclusion. I will not give my conclusion in today's live stream. This is just part one. We are
yeah.
only scratching the surface, the tip of the
Well,
iceberg.
the first person to ride the Burak is Abraham because he would go visit Ishmael in Mecca because Abraham lived in Bethel, right? Beit El, right? The house of Now the Kaaba is called the house of Allah, okay? Abraham lived in Beit El, which is the house of El, the house of, well, the Allah, right? Jehovah in this case, right? So understand all of these. And then, of course, Burak comes from the Hebrew al-barkai, the light has risen, okay? Comes from. So unfortunately, we'll get into all of these funny things. And then, of course, you realize that it states in the hadith that, and this is in Da'if Bukhari, that, of course, that which mosque was built first? He replies, Al-Masjid ul-Haram. Asked which was built next. He says, Al-Masjid ul-Aqs. Okay, that's in Jerusalem, the
Aksa.
Masjid al-Aqsa. And what's the period between them? 40 years. Okay, fine. So let's have a look. Here's Jesus. Here's King Solomon, who builds this temple in 957 BC. Here's Muhammad. Here's the Kaaba. And of course, Abraham built the Kaaba, right? Abraham built the Kaaba, right? If
40
I
years
recall.
before King David. No,
So
Solomon.
Abraham died here. This is where Abraham died. This is where the Kaaba was supposedly built, according to Muhammad's own words. But Abraham built this thing.
So anyone who knows the Bible knows what we are talking about and why we are laughing. Anyone who does not know the biblical narrative, they do not know why we are laughing, because this is the timeline which Lloyd is showing. We will expand that in the next streams as well. But brother, can you show me the pillars inside the Kaaba? I want to see that, and maybe
Well, that
we
bit.
will talk about it some other day. But maybe if you can show another
Okay,
spoiler
so
of
yeah,
the
guys, let me show
pillars.
you this. Okay, so we didn't get into. Okay, we haven't discussed it in depth yet. But what happens is there are verses in the Bible where Abraham is told, these pillars are an abomination to God. I do not want these pillars are evil. I want them destroyed. You will not worship the pillars. Now notice the pillars inside of the Kaaba, these pillars that which is the ancient religion of Abraham. He worshipped pillars which were symbols of the moon god, as you saw those big pillars to Al Makkah, right? At the temple of Al Makkah were pillars. You've got pillars. And notice the crescent moon above next to the Kaaba here. You have the crescent moon right next to the Kaaba, called the Hatim. We'll get into this another time. Right? You've
So
got the
you have the
Hatim
crescent
right here,
moon. Yeah, you have the crescent moon, and you have the pillars. And by the way,
and you have the
Muslims,
pillars.
when they are doing the tawaf, they do not know this is Maqam Ibrahim. If you put the mark pointer inside there, everybody wants to pray the nawafil inside the hatam. Can you please move your mouse inside the crescent moon on your right picture
Yeah.
so that people know what we are talking about? Yeah, here. So everybody wants to offer 2 rakas of nafal in here, inside there, because that is the most holiest place ever. And you know what? When they are offering the 2 rakas, the place is so small, right? Because a lot of people wants to go in, that your sajda, the sajda, the sajud, where you put your head down in the on the floor, it is
Yeah.
usually on the back of some other man in front of you,
Wow.
because there are so many people trying to offer nafal in there. Why are they trying to offer nafal in there? Oh, supposedly it is the Maqam Ibrahim,
Well,
right?
you see, think of this. We'll get to, I mean, as we get to this in the future, but notice here you've got the sun symbol, the sun,
Hmm.
right? Now, notice you go 7 times around counterclockwise, right? Now, the Kaaba is oriented on the second brightest star in the sky called Canopus, okay? So here you've got the Kaaba, and the people are going counterclockwise exactly the same way. So now think, you've got the sun here. This is the sun disk. Here you have the North Star, the pole star. Okay. Here you've got the moon. So here you have the moon. Here you have the North Star. You see? And the people are the stars that go around the pole star. You see? Because the Kaaba is the center of the earth, like the pole star is the center of the universe. Okay. According to
Ouch.
Muslims, this is the center of the earth. They are the
Ouch.
stars that go around the pole star.
And in some of the rituals, it states that if the Tawaf Kaaba is stopped, the circle of the earth will stop and the Qiyamah will come. By the way, thanks to Corona, we proved that it is false. Now they are not repeating this BS, which they were repeating all our life, which were they repeating in all my life that I have been living so far.
Right.
Thanks to Corona, the Tawaf Kaaba was stopped, and we know that the earth did not stop moving and the Qiyamah did not happen. Qiyamah means day of judgment. So, Brother Lloyd, I think it's pretty late for you. I
Mm.
do not want to stop you here for more,
Yeah, I just
but
want to
I
let
just
you know that remember Al Makkah goes back to like 1,000 years BC. Al Makkah, this is a coin, okay, from that region, from Yemen. Al Makkah was known as Allah. Glory be to Allah. This is the Bakka symbol. Remember Bakka?
Mhm,
People think
mhm.
it's the Bekaa Valley. I've been to the Bekaa Valley 3 times in Lebanon. I don't think it means, I don't think that Becca or Bakka means Baka, because it's different. So here you've got, this is the Bakka symbol, meaning glory be to Allah, who happens to be glory be to Al Makkah, the moon god, right here, right? The symbol of the moon god. So Al Makkah, the moon god, glory be to Allah. And of course, his symbol was also the bull with three pillars. Three pillars. How many pillars are inside the Kaaba?
Three.
Three. Exactly. Here you got him
MashaAllah,
again.
MashaAllah, Subhanallah. All right, I'm going to stop you here.
Sure.
Guys, we are going to go deep inside this information that has, in the end, the last 5-7 minutes, which we showed is just a spoiler. So let's just say spoiler alert. Today is part 1. We are going to do part 2 and part 3 and part 4 and as many parts as we can do to show this whole evidence. As always, like I did today as well, and as I have been doing in the historical streams as well, after 1 hour, I send my live stream link in the public for every Muslim, any Muslim, to come up and refute what we have shown. If you have the knowledge, the historical evidence, please click the link and join in and have a reasonable talk. I do not care about the people who wants to come up and have a shouting competition. And you know what I do to the people who try to shout. I can shout much harder, much faster, and then I can remove you. But as long as you want to have a reasonable discussion, you have the evidences, you have the knowledge, come up, talk, refute us. That's what I want you Muslimin to do. This is the channel where we give information and knowledge and education. And if you cannot refute, it means that every single statement that we have said is true and Islam is false. So do not try to send a comment later saying you guys were wrong, because it doesn't matter to me. So this stream is going to happen next Friday, same time. So now you know we are going to come up next Friday, same time as well. So you have a 7 days notice to learn, understand, and prepare your arguments. So next time
Yeah.
when you come, you should have the arguments. Come in, refute us, bring your best scholar. Not, don't come on and say I do not know much about it. Then don't even, then you are not even giving me any answer. I don't know much about it, but I'm telling you, you are wrong. That's not an argument. That's stupidity. That's stupidity. I don't know much about it. No. If you are here, then you know about it. If you are here to refute us, then you have to refute us with the evidences. That's how it
Right.
works.
Yeah. Also, I've double checked the origin of Hanpei. It's Syriac. All my resources, every single one so far says Syriac, not Aramaic.
Amen.
So,
Amen to that. Thank you, everyone. Brother Lloyd, any last comments you would like to say before we end the stream?
no, this is going to get very intense. So I'm just laying out the history. I'm pulling all these threads together. And no, thank you all for your time. Thanks for the attention. I appreciate it. And this is pulling together a huge amount of work from multiple different sources, from Islamic sources, but archaeological sources. I am pulling in from the latest archaeology. And yeah, we're going to find out that Muhammad was a pagan. He worshipped the pagan gods. We're going to find out that the Arabian pagan gods are exactly the same gods as were worshipped in Canaan, as were worshipped in Babylon, as were worshipped in Persia, as and so on and so on and so on. There were slight variations. And we will see that God in the Bible says that all of these people are, these gods are evil, these gods are to be destroyed. Abraham is told, at least the Abraham as we know him, how Muslims know him, well, that's a completely different story. So when we will learn, when we will see that the early roots of Islam are all pagan from Babylon. Because, one last thing, within all the other traditions, the moon is feminine and the sun is a man. The sun is male. But in Islam, it's swapped around. The moon is a man god, the male, and the sun is female. And there's only one other culture in that region that happens to have the same concept of a male moon god, which is Babylon. So it is derived from Babylon, and they follow this. And we're going to see that Proto-Islam is originally pagan. And that's it. Thank you
Absolutely.
very much. I'll see you next
And
week.
when you bring up these things, brother, I will show you from the Islamic sources as well that the Islamic sources claim and give you a good hint that Muhammad was pagan, his mother was pagan, his father was pagan, his grandfather was pagan. And I will prove it that
Hmm?
even in the Islamic sources, the most Sahih hands, all of the family of Muhammad was pagan and they were worshipping pagan gods. So when you bring
Yep.
up that topic, I will going to present you these evidences as well at the same
I would
time.
love to incorporate that into my slides as additional evidence. That would be fantastic.
Amen, brother. At the same time, guys, uh, I we will going to put the slideshow link in the description. Not right now. I think you should have some kind of a tajassus. Tajassus is what do you call it in English? A surprise or a thing. What will come kind of a thing. So, but trust me, all of these links will be available to you and everyone for free. For free. So let's listen, understand, comprehend, and then get the source. Because sometimes you can take the source, but you do not know because presentation doesn't elaborate everything. We are elaborating things while presenting. So unless you know how to present this information is absolutely nothing. This is how it happens for any presentation. So we have Muhammad. He is saying आज मुझे पता चला कि इस्लामिक त्यौहार चांद की तारीख से क्यों शुरू होते हैं. He is saying today I realize why all the events in the Islamic world works by the moon. Muhammad, you are absolutely right.
We'll get
Absolutely.
into that. Yeah.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Brother
We'll
Lloyd,
get much deeper into that subject. It's all about the moon. Their whole culture revolves around the moon. We'll get into that. Yeah.
and you already shared the foreign words information in Quran in your link. Anybody who wants that spreadsheet, it is there. The link is in the live chat. I will put that in description as well. And the presentation we will add later. God bless you all. And Brother Lloyd, last words before I end.
Um. No, that's it. Thanks. And no, that's it for me. I'll see you guys next week.
And Takbir, Al Masihu Akbar.
Alazim.
No, no, Al Masihu Akbar.
Al
Takbir.
Almasi Alu Akbar.
Amen. You are pretty close. Yeshua Akbar Azim. Have a blessed day, evening, or night, wherever you
Yeshua
are.
Akbar Alazim. Good night, everyone.
Amen.
God
God
bless.
bless you guys. Take care.